people, especially when it's so many people I know and love.
It's an overwhelming outpouring of support from friends and family. It's I feel like I'm at my bar mitzvah, but I'm not Jewish, so it's like my confirm mitzvah.
It was nice to see Gary up there talking sincerely about, you know, what he did and why he believes in this cause, and not having anyone there yelling Baba Booey during it or goofing on him. And he got his point across in a very sweet way. And I was glad I was there live to celebrate the moment with my good friend.
We do some incredible work. We go on tour with some of the biggest names in music like Madonna, U2, and Coldplay. We set up tables while we're on tour with them where we can do outreach programs. We distribute condoms. We distribute educational materials. And this is really important that we reach the younger people, because you've heard it a couple of times before, but infections are on the rise.
I wasn't even aware of all the work you put into it. The only Gary I know is the guy who eats cookies and falls asleep all day. So when he went through the whole list of things that he did to make this thing such a great event, was quite surprising.
Life constantly throws you curveballs, and you have to figure out how to handle them. While at times my motives may seem altruistic, they're also selfishly cathartic. If you had a tragedy in your life or you come upon a hurdle in your life and you work to correct it, it makes you feel really good. I highly recommend it.
The video was easy to watch because I'd watched it a bunch of times and shown it to some people. The harder part for me was the speech. I had written a part in the speech, and you know, when I'd read it a couple of times, I got like a little choked up, and I was just afraid. I just, you know, I know it's, listen, if you're gonna get choked up and you're trying to raise money, that would be the place.
I have to thank my wife Mary and my kids Jackson and Lucas, and they've been so supportive. And Jackson and Lucas, I don't want to get your heads big, but so many people have come up to me tonight and told me what great kids you are, what a great job Mom and I have done. And Jackson came home from college tonight. In fact, he's at Syracuse. The game's on the TV outside right now, yet he chose to be here with Dad. Thank you very much. They never met my brother, but they listen to my stories and they ask me questions about him, and it's almost as if they had met him. So doing the work I do is a way to honor him. Every time I raise $1, every time I give a speech, every time I go to an event like this, it reminds me of him. It's my way to remember him, and I want to thank all of you for helping me to keep his memory alive. Thank you.
1 second, Gary, 1 second before you leave the stage. There's one more person who wanted to offer their congratulations for all the great work that you do for Lifebeat and have been doing over the years, and she's right here.
Hey, Baba Booey.
A little bit of a surprise to me when I was presented with my award, I got a video message from Cyndi Lauper, who I love.
I wish I could be there to present this award to you in person. You deserve it. For all your work with HIV, AIDS, and Lifebeat, bless you. And I'm sure your brother's looking down right now, smiling and saying thanks. And thank you. Thank you for all your hard work. This is a much-deserved award. And you're a really good guy. Love ya. Love you, Baba Booey.
Well, she really went out of her way that night. That was backstage. I think she shot that backstage one of the first or second nights for Kinky Boots, which just a few weeks ago won the Tony. So just amazing.
Congratulations, that's a great speech.
Thank you, thank you. I was nervous all night. I mean, I have so many friends here tonight. It really is like a wedding or a bar mitzvah, but the support is amazing. And I mean, it just keeps pouring in and pouring in, so I couldn't be happier. And I'm so glad to have my wife and kids here for it, and my brother and everybody.
When you're with someone like Gary Dell'Abate and you see how hard he works above and beyond a job title when it comes to charity and raising money and giving back, you realize like he is really getting his hands dirty. I am so touched and I'm so honored to know a person like that and to work with a person like that every day. So now you can enjoy the rest of the evening.
My scotch is on the way.
Okay, congratulations. Well done.
Thank you very much.
I'm proud to know you.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. Thank you very much.
He's doing something in the memory of his brother that is forceful and dynamic. I admire him. I admire what Gary does.
All right, so let's talk about the Ronnie Lisa kiss. Here's what happened.
Lisa G pitched this bit. She came in and said, well, we're going to get a certain amount of tweets. And then when we get a certain amount of tweets, I'm going to make out with Ronnie.
Ronnie for years has been wanting to kiss Lisa. And Lisa, I don't think she was up for it, but as we got closer to the release of the book, I think that definitely lubed things up for her, if you will.
It was her idea. Nobody else's idea. It wasn't my idea. I knew nothing about it. It's all about her book. I know it is. It's a promotion thing.
You think she's going to get super excited when she makes out with you?
I don't think it'll ever happen. How's that?
Why?
Now it sounds like it won't.
I don't think it'll ever happen.
Well, it sounds so complicated.
It's very simple.
This is my mind.
Two major developments today. One, of course, was the return of George Takei. And the show just takes on an entirely new element whenever George is in the studio. He's so honest. He's so forthcoming and charming and so explicit in his storytelling that Howard just said hi to George this morning, and then he ends up talking for an hour because George always has something to say and a lot to say about it. But that was followed by Robin, who decided today that she was going to talk about why she's been out. And I think that a lot of people are asking, why'd she take so long? Why couldn't we know this? The show's all about honesty, etc. And I think this is one of those situations where, as you heard Robin and Howard tell the story, you really needed to respect where they were coming from and why they chose to keep this private. There were a couple of things going on there. One, I think if Robin told people what was going on during all of this, there would have been a ton of, and again, your heart's in the right place. How you doing? Are you okay? And the show ended up being very therapeutic for Robin because it was the time where she wasn't dealing with her illness and she wasn't fighting cancer and going to all these treatments. And you really have to take your hat off to her in terms of showing up to work every day, granted via the ISDN line, but still being on air, pushing through when other people, not just Benji, but other people, they come in late, they have their reasons, whatever else. But you could also see what a literal lifeline this show is for Robin and frankly for Howard. Howard was wrecked when this first came out and didn't feel comfortable doing the show without her. And, thankfully she was able to be on. And yes, we miss her being here physically, but she's on the air. It's reached the point now where I don't think anybody even thinks twice about Robin being here because it seems like she's here all along. We miss her for the off the air stuff. But some of us have been communicating with her for a long time, and the range of contact varies from Howard, obviously, who's been talking to Robin day in, day out and helping her through this, which now she's been out for well over a year, to other folks who, I've been emailing her a lot. Gary, I know, has been talking to her quite a bit, but no, not one of us, with the exception of Howard, really knew all the details of what was going on and what she's been fighting. And thankfully, she got that diagnosis. She's still working and fighting through, but it looks like she's cancer-free and hopefully going to be back here sometime soon. But Gary, I know you said a lot of it came as news to you. You knew, you were aware, but you didn't know all the details that were coming through.
I knew about the first operation. In fact, I was getting phone calls the whole day while she was in the operation, and it was a really weird day because I got some misinformation. And so I was out at a charity event, my phone rang, and it was almost like, this is not good. Not that anything was going to happen to her that day, but that it didn't look very good at all.
She spoke a couple times about getting a prognosis or the possibility of a prognosis like that. Like if this spread all throughout her body, she was done. But
this was that first day operation that we all knew, here on the show knew she was going in. I got the report it was not going well.
Yeah, that she told was an 8-hour operation.
12.
And the reason was because that grapefruit-sized tumor inside her was so big they had to move her around to get it out of her. But can you imagine waking up after that? Nobody's there. You went in not knowing what, the prognosis was going to be. You have those marks you can't see on your stomach. I mean, I can only imagine what that, and granted, you're probably not all there because you're drugged. But
which could be worse.
Yeah, but oh my God, to not have anybody there, that's just crazy. And I do remember when we went to visit her, how happy she was to see it. Thankfully, we didn't get the Benji treatment. She was happy to see us.
Didn't she look great when we went to see her?
She looked fantastic. I couldn't believe what she just went through. But the other thing was, when we were talking to her, you looked over to the window, and sure enough, you saw that picture of Howard. And that's really what got Jason. No go. That's really what got her through a lot of this.
But as I said to Howard today, you know, I guess everybody on the staff knew different, you know, varying degrees of stuff. And my assumption was after that initial operation that it was still touch and go, but that she was going to be all right, but it was going to be a very long recovery. I did not know that they told her, like, hey, we're just going to try to make the rest of your life as good as we can. And in a way, I'm sort of glad I didn't know it now, because it would have been really fucked up. It would have, you know, it would have been terrible.
Well, if a doctor is telling you, you know, okay, here's how we're going to prolong your life, you're immediately like, what do you mean prolong my life? And the fact that she was saying, I thought she was so candid about this today when she said, I didn't know if I wanted to live my life that way.
I get it, but I think nobody wants to live their life that way, but I would like to think that it's better than not living at all.
Well, yes and no. I mean, to her, with her personality and the way she sort of lives life, it didn't sound like she was willing to go there. Jace, what do you want to say?
I actually just came down to tell Gary that the meatballs are here, and if we should wait, keep them out in the lobby, or wait.
No, go put them out.
Oh, okay. But in terms of Robin, it was great hearing her today. Will and I had lunch with her a few months after her surgery, and just like everybody else is saying, couldn't believe how much energy she had, how good she looked, how, you know, on top of it she was. You know, both my parents have had cancer, and I know what it's like after a round of chemo or something like that, and you don't want to move, you don't want to talk, you don't want to do anything. So it's crazy how well she responded to all that.
Yeah, her first round of chemo, she was commenting how even like people, you had chemo, like she didn't lose her hair, she didn't lose her energy, she kept going. The second round, that's where she lost her hair. It really, you know, kind of hit her a little bit harder. But yeah, she's what we've been. I mean, I've been emailing TV stuff with her. I thought I watched a lot of TV.
Right.
Obviously, she's in a position to watch a lot more than me, but her spirits are just so great. And Howard always makes the comment how if nobody else was here, he could do the show, just him in front of the microphone. I believe that, but I honestly think now if Robin wasn't here, I don't know if he would want to go on with the show. It would just be not only would be different, but. Today you got a great window into how close their relationship really is.
Yeah, and I'm not going to get too into it, but when we thought that, at first we thought that Robin might be out for a really extended period of time, and we were trying to figure out how to handle that situation, and I would just say the best word I could use is it was very unsettling for Howard. It's just, you know, not only because of what does the show, because you do something the same way every day and there's a chemistry, but because of what I could imagine he was thinking. You know, I would think it would be very difficult for him to do the show and not be thinking about what's going on with her, and it would really be hard to pull off.
Were your feelings hurt when she said that she didn't think you could handle what was going on, and that's why she didn't tell you everything?
No. You want to know when my feelings were hurt? When Howard imitates me, makes fun of me for saying I didn't know anything, does his bucktooth thing where he sticks out his mouth like this, and so Gary came to me and said, I didn't know anything. I'm like, what are you picking on me for? I didn't know. Like, why am I the asshole?
I think Gary might have been a little too sensitive for Robin. Just judging off his sensitivity right now.
Based on that?
Yeah,
Is
based
that
on
what you mean?
maybe she was
because
right.
as you listen to the conversation, Howard's making jokes. Howard's trying to make it light because it's a really heavy thing you're talking
about. All right, Benji's
here.
To your left. Go get him.
Well, Benji got hit. I mean, Robin actually said, you know, she didn't want Benji to visit. And I don't know how much she was kidding when she said that.
I don't think she was kidding at all. And I felt bad for Benji.
So did I.
I mean, you're going to make an effort to visit somebody. Don't mock them.
Gary, initially, a lot of people, when Robin wasn't here, were complaining and saying, well, why doesn't she come in? And kind of, or thinking that couldn't understand why this was being kept private. And as a fan, I get it. I want to know what's going on because that's what this show does. That's what it's always been. But you also have to figure if we're keeping something private, there's probably a good reason for it.
John, you just teed up. You've seen me in the back office, how long I've been waiting for this day to talk about this. I found it very upsetting when people called up with all these conspiracy theories. Where's Robin? Why aren't you telling us? This is bullshit. And I understand the show's a very honest show, but as you heard today, I thought it was very obvious. You know, Robin was sick. Then we went away. And then when we came back, Robin missed a day. And then we were on the air again, and Robin wasn't telling her story. And, you know, it came up even on the wrap-up show a couple of times. I just felt like, I think most of the people in the audience understood that they would trust us enough. I would always say it's Robin's story to tell. And if it was something we weren't talking about, then I thought it would be really obvious that it was something super important. And Jason and I were talking about this because he said it came up on one of his shows. Like, what's the conspiracy? Like, what did you think we were covering that Robin was doing? What did you think she was up to that we were covering for her?
Well,
wasn't it obvious she was sick?
Well, everyone always has conspiracy theories about this show. That's part of what makes it tick. But Howard and Robin clearly had a conversation about it, and if they were going to talk about it on the air, and they decided not to because they felt the focus would be on her illness versus doing a good show. And I said this before you guys came in. I think that Robin found it very therapeutic to go to work and have a good time and break balls and do whatever else because it was an escape from what she was dealing with, which was a life-threatening disease.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I don't think I'm speaking out of school. Robin and I hung out about a month and a half ago. We had a weekend together with a bunch of people, and we were talking about Robin Roberts. And Robin Quivers said to me, gee, I don't think I could do that. I don't think I could do that at all. And I said, for her, maybe bringing the audience into it worked for her. For Robin, I think she just felt like, because it also defines you. You know what I mean? It defines you in a lot of ways. And, it can be difficult. So I think it's a very, very personal decision.
Well, we all tried to give our support and talk to Robin and reach out to her in a lot of different ways. And she reacted differently to different people. But she did say that the sweetest of them all was none other than Ronnie Mund. And Ronnie, you love breaking balls with Robin and vice versa, I know. But you knew what was going on. And I know how close you guys are. I'm not going to say were, but are. And to hear her finally tell this story, do you think she was relieved? Do you think, are we happy that now she's at a place where she feels comfortable talking about this?
Yeah, I think so, because, it's a rough thing to have to go through, being sick to begin with, and depending on how sick you are, you really sometimes don't want to talk about it, and you want to forget about it and go about your life as best you can, and that's what she was doing, basically. I mean, she didn't miss a step with sticking me in the back during the shows, with her big knives and stuff, which I always bust her balls about. But, I know Robin for a real long time, and I've seen her go through a lot of shit, not with sickness. Well, yeah, with a different kind of sickness, and I've seen her go through it, and where she was locked in the house and never came out of the house and stuff like that. But I don't want to go into too much detail. But, it was good to see that she could snap back from this, and I'm real happy for her.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we have a very interesting organization here. Some of us have been together as much as 30 years. I'm 30 years with the show. Robin's like 33, Fred's like 36, and Ronnie's like 28. We've all been together a long time. We're a family, a dysfunctional family. At times we fuck with each other, but we're a family. And it's more than just working together. You do work together and there's a bond there, but we feel like, I know for me, like when I think of like myself and Howard and Fred and Robin, I felt like, something really amazing has been built here. Howard's built this empire. He's built this legacy in radio and in television. And we were all a part of that. And that, that really is a big bond. And, we see each other socially a lot too. I was joking around, like Robin started sending Christmas gifts to my kids when they were really young. And now my son's in second year in college, Jackson, and she still sends a gift. And I talked to her about it once, and she said, you know what? I knew you when you lived at home with your parents. I watched you get married. I watched you have kids. I watched your kids grow up. I watched your kids go off to school. That's what we are. That's what we're doing here. This is our family.
Benji, you, I think, didn't get that kind of love today. And part of it, yes, it's the show, and you're Howard's making people laugh, and that's the way it goes. But two things. One, first, with Robin being out, and coming to work every day and showing up, going through chemo, all that stuff. Did any of that resonate with you, thinking like, wow, maybe I should be doing it? But you've been...
No, like Gary says, like, we are a family. And I live in the shed out back, but we're a family. But no, I was, and I thought it was so silly when people were making a thing about, ISDN. Who gives a fuck? I mean, if you do give a fuck, you give a fuck. But it's like everyone's job has their own things and everything. And I don't think I took it so much like, oh my God, she can do. I just took it overall as a very inspiring thing that she can be facing mortality right in her face and still, be a creative, artistic person.
Yeah, I will tell you that I knew I've always known that the show's meant a lot to Robin, but I really got to see it firsthand because she didn't miss a couple of days. You know, she missed like 2 days, but she didn't miss. Somebody in the same position would have missed a lot more days. Yeah. And the tenacity that she had to make sure she was there for those days, and I could tell that the show meant everything to her. That it was, everybody finds, sort of strength in a different place, and for her, it was being on the show every day. I think the feeling was, if I can get in front of that microphone every day, I can go another day.
Did it hurt when she said that? Thanks for trying to visit, but
no, I you know what the problem was. Like first of all, I texted when everyone was in that period when we knew she was told she was in the hospital and everything, but she texted back like an ambiguous message, which she said like, "Oh, not this week, but definitely check back next week." And I think that happened more than once. And I knew she really didn't want me to, but the text was ambiguous enough that I had to keep responding.
But it sounds like when you call a girl and you go, "You want to go on a date?" She says, "Not this Friday, but maybe next Friday."
Yeah, but eventually it works usually.
The other thing is you want to sort of respect the person's privacy. And also, Robin clearly, with some people she wanted to talk about this, but with others she didn't. And I don't know how you communicated, Gary, but I was very careful to be like, just talk about TV, hope you're doing great. And if she wanted to talk about that, what she was going through, that's fine. But if not...
Oh, you did talk to her.
I think you're a better friend... almost, if you don't go there because you're respecting their wishes.
I ended up speaking to her a lot. Like I'd call her every probably month and a half, and I would call her and I'd leave her a message, and sometimes she'd call me back in a day, and sometimes she wouldn't call me back for a week or two. But she always seemed to want to talk about where she was. I never had to ask her. I would just be like, "How are you doing, Robin? I'm just checking in with you." And she would generally tell me.
Did you check in with her a lot, Ronnie?
I checked in with her a lot. I saw her a lot in the hospital, and both hospitals she was in. Mm-hmm. It was good to see her, and you know what? It made me feel good because I made her laugh, believe it or not. We sat there and we had some really good laughs. We talked about old times. We talked about old shows. We talked about how I got my balls busted. She got her balls busted, how we busted each other's balls. And the funniest day was the day with the picture. She was showing everybody the picture of how it was, which was a scream.
But Ronnie, did you ever have a point where you thought to yourself, we might have to someday do the show without Robin? Did you ever have those thoughts?
In the beginning, yeah.
And they were fucking weird, right?
Yeah, it was real weird. Because I remember the day she walked out of the studio when she was leaving here to go for the first operation. And I just walked over and I gave her a hug, and we both basically almost busted out crying. And I just said, I love you and don't worry about it. You're going to be good. And that was it.
Well, I don't know if you guys talked about this already. Do you think Howard would want to go on without Robin being a part of the show? Long term.
I think at some point he would make the decision to do it because at the end of the day, he's always got that driving force, but I think it would be a difficult decision for him, and it would never be the same. It just wouldn't be the same. And it might be at the point where he might do it for a little bit more and go, you know what? I thought I could do it, and I can't, and maybe I don't anymore.
I think he'd still be a personality and be part of the media, but I think the show would probably... my guess is he might decide to end it then.
Well, there's a big difference between like her recovering and knowing that she's going to be back in X amount of time, and her not coming back at all. I mean, that's where the decision
that's what I'm saying. Well, Gary's implying, God forbid, she had passed away, and I think there's a good chance if she had, Howard might have decided this is the time to end it.
It could be. It's a distinct possibility.
Cheryl in Nevada, welcome to the wrap-up show.
Hi.
Hi, Cheryl.
Excuse me. This is me? Oh, I'm sorry. I was listening so intently there. Well, one question I had, Robin is coming back, so my main question was, is your little mini studio still there?
Yeah, it hasn't moved.
Well, I got a lot of stuff in there. I got to get out.
You know what? There is. It's funny. We did a renovation that we talked about in the air, and there's a lot of stuff in there.
My winter's jackets.
Yeah, but I mean, it could be cleaned out in a day, and we're ready.
It might take a couple of days, but
Victor in Gainesville, you're on the wrap-up show.
Yeah, I just have a question. I'm happy for Robin, and the kind of treatment that she got is incredible. Do you think if it were an average person other than Robin Quivers, do you think that person would have gotten that type of care, given they only have a limited amount of money, or, with the new health care law, do you think that would have changed the type of care that Robin received?
Well, there's a lot of questions there. I'm not sure what the new health care law is, so I'm not even going to get into that. And, yeah, Robin probably has more tools because she knows a lot of people, and of course she should use them. But I think what I really got out of today, which I'm seeing a lot of people up on the board are talking about, is even if you don't have a lot of money, you should always get a second opinion. And I'm seeing so many people have been calling all day. Some guy tweeted out, my dad never got a second opinion and he died. I get a second opinion when I'm getting a roof put on my house. I have 3 guys come and look at it. You should always get a second opinion. You should, and that's one of those things you never can trust just one person.
But Gary, I agree with you, but that's easier said than done. If you're in a hospital that's a good hospital and someone's giving you a diagnosis and you feel like they're sort of taking care of you, it's hard sometimes to do that. Thankfully Robin did, and Sloan Kettering is an amazing hospital for this kind of thing, and thankfully it's worked out well. But I know a lot of people are like, oh, I don't have that kind of money, I can't get that kind of care.
But does it cost money to go to a second doctor and just say, look at this, what do you think?
It depends. It depends on the doctor. It depends on a lot of different things.
And the other thing is, even if you're again, just to go once to the doctor, it's your life.
Yeah.
It's your life. So whatever money you have is useless if you're dead.
And even if it's not, even if it's someone who is on your plan or whatever else, if you have a plan, it's another set of eyes. And that's always good, especially when you're dealing with something like this.
Right.
And you want to have a fighting chance, that's for sure. Neil, you're on the wrap-up show.
Hey, guys. Great show today.
Hey, Neil.
Very emotional. Yeah. I love that emotion. You don't get a lot from the Stern Show. It was nice. Like those switch. I was just wondering, do you guys find it inspirational at all? Like what Robin's been through? Like, is it harder to take a day off? Like knowing, you got the sniffles, you don't feel too great, but you think what she's been through and it kind of pushes you through the day?
Well, I'll tell you something. Even before Robin, nobody takes a day off here for the sniffles. So anybody who takes a day off for something, it's usually got to be something pretty important. And in fact, Howard sent me home one day because I was in the bathroom waiting to throw up. But is it inspirational? Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know that I could. First of all, I don't think anybody needs me on an ISD online if I'm not here. I'm doing a different job. But I don't know that I could pull that together every day the way she did.
It inspired her. It got her through a lot of tough days. And sometimes, like you said before, Gary, that's what you need. And it really, kept her going. You sense that, Ronnie. Like when she's on the air, she's not dealing with all this medical crap. She's doing what she loves to do.
To listen to her on the air, you would never know she was sick. That's the whole thing,
Pretty
and
incredible.
Maybe that's why, some people were suspicious that there's something going on.
Because she sounded so good.
She sounded good. But again, we were very clear about saying there's a reason Robin's not here. We're not going to tell you, but just trust us.
Mark in Albany, you're on the wrap-up show.
You know what? This was a great show. I was just talking to a friend of mine that's a big fan last week, and we were saying that, nothing's ever been said about Robin. And I realized that this is a personal thing, but on a fan standpoint, we've been kind of drawn into this world, and what's going on? Nothing's being said, and my gosh, was this as random as this phone call that came in and opened the doors, or was this something that Howard and Robin had talked about, and then decided this would be a good time to open up about it?
Again, when I spent this weekend with Robin talked about how she was planning on talking about this soon. I didn't know it was going to be today, but I knew that she was planning to talk about it soon because she felt comfortable enough where she, like she called me in January to say, I'm cured. And I almost didn't know what to make of that. What does that mean? And I was like, it also seemed she was cured pretty fast, so I was like worried for her. But then when she explained the whole thing to me, I sort of understood it. And, you just want to make sure everything's going well.
I think we all knew that when she was ready, that's when she was going to talk about it.
But that's what we said all along.
Yeah, and that's what happened, sure enough. Ralph Sorella, you're on the wrap-up show. Hi, Ralphie.
Hey, quickly, well, let's be honest here. Robin's alive because she's rich and she knows other rich people who can get her the best care. Most people can't get what she got. No matter how many people you consult with, you can only consult with so many people.
I agree with that. I agree with the first part of that, Ralph, that she got the best care she could because of her wealth. But you can still consult with other people and get a different decision.
Yeah, but I don't know how much she got into it, but it really was her even at her space, they were telling her she would have like horrible quality of life, and then she found the right people. But anyway, but what I couldn't get over, and you talked about it a little bit, Robin's energy.
Yeah.
I had dinner with her one day after she had chemo. And I was like, my God, if I had chemo, I wouldn't be moving. I would just be laying there. I mean, and she's like, oh, yeah, it's like was another thing she just fit into her day.
Yeah.
I was like, 12, I got chemo. Oh, I got to meet Ralph at 3, and then...
It's interesting. I actually want to credit one of the writers from the Letterman Show emailed me this morning, and he asked me a very interesting question, which was Robin watching Breaking Bad while she was going through chemo? That must have been so weird, that whole plot line last summer, and, he's getting chemo, and it's just a strange thing, because I know how much she loves that show.
Oh, right. Yeah, that would be weird. But now, did she say that she is, what did she say about her state right now, where she is?
That she's cured.
She's completely cured.
Yeah.
Don't you have to go a certain amount of months or even like a year to say that, though?
I thought so, too, but she said that's what her doctor told her.
She said her doctor said she didn't use the word remission. She said, you are cured.
Right, yeah.
Wow. Well, that's great.
All right. Thank you, Ralphie.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ralph's right. Her energy is but she's always had that energy. She's always running. I mean, recently she's had that energy where it's not surprising to me that even though she got chemo, she was still up and running and going because she has such a joy for life. And I think that's what caused that conflict if she was in a condition where she couldn't do what she wanted to do. But one of the things that Benji brought up before, Gary, was would Howard continue with the show? And you feel like he would.
Well, I feel like it would be something that he'd have to really, really think about. I don't think he'd go like, oh, let's just do the show tomorrow. I think it would have to be something that it would weigh on him. But, you and I were talking about it during the break. How could he do the show without Robin? And I would think that, Robin's feeling would be, hey, we built this amazing thing. Don't stop because of me. Keep it going. Don't diminish what we built.
I get that. But I also think I remember how out of sorts he was when Robin was, maybe wasn't going to come back and all that. And I know the show has gone on and lost a bunch of people as time has gone on, but with Robin, and at the point of Howard's career, I just don't know if he would, even part of him would want to. I think out of respect for her, he almost wouldn't do it. But thankfully, we don't have to find that out. Steve in Louisiana, you're on the wrap-up show.
Yeah, man, you kind of hit on what I was going to say, John. It's just, I don't think that the fans were necessarily projecting hatred towards Robin. It was just the fact that, Howard's performance can be affected if she ain't there. And so it's just the fact that she wasn't in the studio seems like she's a step away from not being on the show, which means Howard wouldn't be doing the show. The dangers of doing a show like this where it's full disclosure is that when it gets real, is that, you're towing a line where it's just, the fans feel like they're owed things, but that's just the fans that don't get it really too, because they feel so personal with the show that it's like, I need to know everything right now. But, sometimes just like you got to back off, man. This is a TV show. It's entertainment. It's not, some people get involved as it's their life, which is, that's how it plays out. But you can get into dangerous territory where people are vindictive about how she's not there. But I don't think it was necessarily against her. It's just the show not keeping on going.
Steve, I think that's actually really well said. I also think that I don't know how you would rank the listeners, like a casual listener, but even if you're a pretty regular listener, I think that it was very difficult to tell that Robin wasn't in the studio. I think that if you missed the days where we were talking about what happened and we didn't refer to the ISDN, I think that there was that you wouldn't know.
No, I mean, I'm here. I'm in the studio, and if I wasn't looking up to see, I really wouldn't know.
So yeah. I don't think that it changed the show. It may have changed it for us on a lot of levels, and then we got used to it. I got, at the beginning it was a little bit harder not having her here, and like I would IM stuff to Jim McClure, he could give it to her, and I could speak to her that way. But there were a lot of people, who didn't know. The interesting thing is,
I found out today.
The interesting thing is, my job before every guest was to go in and say to the guest, hey, by the way, Robin's not in studio today. She's doing the show from her home via ISDN line. And I would say, don't reference it, not because the audience knows she's not here, but it slows down the show if you go, hey, because remember at the beginning, a bunch of people go like, where's Robin?
Yeah.
And Howard got all pissed off at me. And it was very interesting. Like people would get this different voice on. Like, I remember Bradley Cooper, like, go, I know, how is she? You know, like, people who really love the show understood it and know, but they would put on their sad voice to ask how Robin was, and everybody, to a person, asked how she was.
When you hear Howard and Robin having these serious, emotional, deep conversations, someone always has to lighten it up. Like, it's almost like they're scared to go to that place for a bunch of different reasons. But thankfully they did today, and you got some great radio.
Although I suspect they went to those places when they were talking off the air.
Yeah, just the two of them,
and that
of
must
course.
have been really hard.
Yeah, I think it weighed down, obviously, on Robin and certainly on Howard. But again, happy ending to the story. You know, thankfully, it looks like things are looking great for Robin, and we wish her, you know, a speedy recovery, of course. And now that she's cured, hopefully, only good things will happen.
Hey, what's up? This is Will, and on Tuesday's wrap-up show, we talked about who's changed the most on the staff since they started working here. We know a lot of them have changed physically because they're all fat asses, but we're talking about emotionally, spiritually. It's great stuff.
Will's here because I wanted to bring him down to talk about Dr. Chin, who is very clear about the woman that he wants in his life to marry, and had a bunch of different conditions. And the guy, I mean, he's not a bad-looking guy. Clearly, he's successful, I mean, at what he does. He has got a bunch of money, and he's just looking for the right one, but he's going about it in an awfully strange way, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, he's very specific about what he's looking for. And, you know, he said to me that he has more money than God at this point, and he doesn't really care what his parents think, so he's just going to go for what he wants. And he just happens to have a list of exactly what he wants.
I have to tell you, it's more of a visual thing. He won me over when he showed up in the lab coat.
Yeah.
You know, like, it was almost like we called Central Casting and said, send that guy.
My favorite part of the interview was when he revealed that he's done some work for strippers and they pay him in funny money. And he doesn't, but he gave it to his staff, and, you know, they all
Which is like, so then he sends me an email where he goes, yeah, I got tired of that. That's like, you know, what's his name? Joey Chestnut doesn't want to eat another Nathan's hot dog like I want a lap dance. I'm like, oh, okay. Interesting analogy.
And I guess if you find the wife, you get a Ferrari out of it. So it's still a pretty interesting thing to explore if you want to go there. But I was wondering, like, where this ranks in terms of, you know, a lot of times people will get on other people here for not lowering their standards, like not settling. And he's, what, 40? He's in his 40s.
He's 47.
At a certain,
Is he?
At a certain point, you need to, you know, sort of come to grips with what's out there and make the best of it.
Well, he's got a couple of things that most average people don't have: a boatload of money and a great job. So those are things that allow a guy that may not be a 9 or a 10 to look for a 9 or a 10.
Right. So what I'm taking from you is you think JD needs to marry a 4 at this point.
I didn't say that. You said that.
Oh.
But
a 4+.
And JD is more than welcome to come down here to discuss this. But no, JD's been accused of just that, you know, having his standards too high and not being willing to, and settle's the wrong word because it's insulting, and that's not what we mean here. But
find a girl with a good personality.
Well, that's even more insulting in some
it is?
way. But you know what I mean? Like, what's wrong with someone who maybe looks like an ape, has a personality of a 12?
So you look like an ape?
An 8.
Oh, an 8.
But we've had these conversations before. Like I haven't seen many of the girls that JD's been with, but JD just needs like a good, solid girl. And when I mean solid, I don't mean fat. Will's already teed up his next joke. But like, what's wrong with a girl with has he ever dated anybody with a normal job and without drama? Just like a good, solid girl, a girl she's cute enough, she's nice, she's smart, and she likes the things that you like.
But you have friends like that, I'm sure, where the drama always seems to follow whoever they date.
Yeah, but eventually they sort of, you know, you know, you can't complain that you can't make it happen if you're not making some efforts.
Yeah. I feel like this show has kind of perverted him with
Yes.
women.
Oh, please.
You know, like
we fucked him up.
Yeah, absolutely.
We fucked him up. First of all, I got this skinny little nerdy sweet kid who never took a drink in his life.
Right.
And who hadn't had sex. Now, you know, he's like pounding them down. He's, you know, he's been with strippers and porn stars, and, you know, it's not real life.
Would you say
it's funny because that's a lot what that movie Don John is about.
Would you say that JD has changed the most in terms from day one working here to where we are now? And I'll throw Howard into that mix too. Who do you think's really changed the most in terms of their personality and what they're like?
You know, it's interesting with JD because he's changed in those aspects, you know, quite a bit, the ones I just talked about. But at his core, he's the same shy, leave me alone guy that he was when he got here.
Yeah. Back office, I'd say Jason has done the most transformation in terms of personality.
Oh, how so?
Because he was just a kind of quiet young. Gary and I were talking about this yesterday.
I got to tell you a great story. Jason loves the story. You know, when we were at K-Rock, Jason comes up to me one day, and one of the things I loved about Jason when I met him was he was a very hardworking, quiet kid. I didn't really know much about Jason, but I knew that if you gave him something to do, he got it done. He was a very hard worker. So I can't remember how long he was working for me, but he came to me and he said, listen, I went to the doctor and I started taking these pills, like these like happy pills, he called them. And he said, and I think that they're going to bring my personality out more. And sometimes I don't see it. So if you think I'm doing something that's a little out of line, could you let me know? So I'm like, okay, I'll log that information away. We go into a meeting with Tom Chisano, our general manager, and a bunch of salespeople. And Jason is there with me mostly to write down some notes and just sort of lay low. Jason gets up, starts parading around the office, making declarations, and Tom looks at me like, who the fuck is this? And how do you shut him up? So we're back to the office, and I said to Jason, yeah, that's one of those times that, you got to reel it in.
So you say...
It was the beginning.
So I was going to say, that hasn't stopped, but you say Jason has changed more than JD, you think?
Yeah, I mean, JD more or less is the same person. He's obviously much more comfortable with the people he's around.
He's comfortable with us, but I don't think he's any more comfortable with strangers than he was before. Us, he likes, and that took some time, too.
Do you feel like the show has changed who you are at the core?
At the core? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think I'm still a pretty good guy. Shut up.
Well, no one said you weren't a good guy.
No, I know.
But coming in, like Gary was saying, you were sort of, hadn't drank, hadn't had sex, and now you've experienced all that.
I remember the drinking thing was such a big deal. He was so adamantly against drinking. And I don't remember why.
Well, because, I've had family members have that sort of issue, and I didn't want to, I was afraid that sort of thing might be in the genes.
See, I don't think we even knew that at the time. I think you never. I don't think you ever said that. You probably knew that, but we didn't. You were just like, we found it hard to believe that a 23-year-old guy had never had a drink. How old were you when you came to us?
And I hadn't been to a strip club either.
What changed your mind? Like, what made you decide? Okay, now I'm going to take that drink.
I don't know. Maybe just wanting to sort of quote unquote fit in a little bit. Or
peer
whatever.
pressure,
a little peer pressure,
definitely.
But it was a wild. Like how long did you work for us before? It wasn't like JD came to work for us and 3 months later he was drinking. It was a while.
Well, it was the final. It was the E Entertainment. For the E show, it was the last party or whatever. And I had a Malibu Bay Breeze because I said,
I remember that.
Because I said, give me something that tastes good at least.
Was it dick for a twizzle stick?
All right, calm down, Gary. And then I got so much shit like I do now. I got so much shit for it. Like the next time we hung out somewhere, I said, all right, fuck it, I'll have a Jack and Coke, and that's sort of been it.
Is that your drink?
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
How often do you drink now? Like I have no idea.
I barely drink. I mean, I barely go out, so I barely drink.
Right.
Hey, were you at first? I might have missed this, but were you at first kind of holding out for moral reasons or?
And then I don't think moral reasons. I was just, I am afraid to be out of control. So I don't want to.
Was it a little bit like when someone loses their virginity though? After the first time, it's no big deal anymore, and you can do it as much as you want.
It's sort of like that now, but I still don't drink that much.
Did you get the first night you drank with the Bay Breeze and stuff? Did you get so drunk that you barfed? Did you get crazy drunk though, or just a couple of drinks?
No, I literally only had one of those.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it wasn't.
So what's the drunkest you've ever been since you started drinking?
Well. I don't know if it was a drunk. I mean, there've definitely been some beer pong times where I've probably been pretty out there, but I've only puked once from alcohol, and we were out in I don't know how I got pushed into this, but some of us went over to the Poconos at some house, and some house in the woods or whatever, and I was just drinking like crazy and playing beer pong. And I remember the electricity went out at one point. I was gone by then. And I was like, all right, I'm going to get up. I'm going to puke over this railing. So I puked over the railing, and then I laid down in a hammock, and I see Richard Christie laying in a hammock next to me reading a book. And next thing I know, I wake up outside. I'm the only one outside. Everyone else is inside.
It started to pour rain.
His
pants were down.
No, my pants were
We
down.
tried to get you up, but this was we rented a house in the Poconos.
I don't even remember this. So
I had a bunch of people over, and JD and Richard were probably the most hammered people. And JD passed out in the hammock, and it started to pour. It's one of the reasons the power went out, I think, or it was later. And we tried to get him up from the hammock, and I was like, well, whatever, and we just all went inside.
John, I wonder, do you think JD's like Koothrappali on The Big Bang Theory? Like when you drink, is it easier for you to talk to chicks?
Oh, I don't know about that. I mean,
do you worry less?
I don't know. I don't think I don't know.
I think honestly, I played
Thank
beer
you for the
pong.
soundbite.
I played beer pong a lot with JD, and I think he's kind of the same guy, drunk and not drunk. Like we could be drunk. Like JD knows that there's a change becomes of me halfway through a beer pong tournament. Like I will turn into a completely different person.
Well, you physically change. Your eyes barely open.
Mostly with some help with herbal medicine.
Yes.
But JD is pretty much like we could play like 7 games of beer pong. JD, should be trashed at this point, and he'll still be just as upset and miserable.
He's
after
still
a
slurring
loss.
his words.
Yeah,
is what
still
you're saying?
slurs his words. Still hard to understand.
JD,
and still miserable.
Let me ask you the question: who do you think has changed the most since they came to work here?
Who do I think has changed the most? I mean, I guess probably maybe Jason. I don't remember Jason being as outgoing as like when we first started working here. When I first started working here.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Benji's gone through more changes.
No, but Benji's still.
No,
Benji
I meant
at his core is the same person.
Making a joke.
Both Will and Jason both.
Yeah, I was gonna say Will,
especially from when they first interned. Like Will, I liked him a lot, but I felt bad for him because he seemed so shy and so like. I felt like I didn't even realize he just didn't seem like a happy person. He seemed very shy, and
that's changed.
You seem like you're much more assertive.
Now you feel sorry for you.
Well, I think listen, yeah, right. But I think when anyone starts as an intern here, they're somewhat intimidated and they don't want to be the loudmouth in the corner.
Right.
We can all tell from experience that that's not the interns that we like.
When
either.
that guy walks in, every semester you get that guy, and we all look at each other and go, "That guy has just arrived."
And Jason completely, and Jason's talked about. He says this is who he feels he's always really been. Right. But like the antidepressants.
Yeah, I don't think it's even a contest. And again, I'm the only one who could really answer this because I've been here the longest. 1984 Fred bears no resemblance to current day Fred. He has really changed the most. He was very quiet, very introverted, brilliant, brilliantly smart, but socially just didn't like to get out there. I mean, in some ways, he was like JD in the sense that like he didn't feel comfortable in social situations. And then, he got married. He moved to New York City. He sort of flourished culturally, and he's like a different guy.
Well, another name I'll throw in, none of you guys said, is Howard. I mean, Howard's changed quite a bit.
And he would have to.
And only for the better. I'm just putting it out there. I'll be the only one that says it. That's fine.
Ronnie?
No, Ronnie. I mean,
or has Ronnie always been that guy, and that guy has only surfaced in the last few years?
That's what I think.
I think Ronnie's regressed.
That's still changed.
I think he's got backwards.
But I think that guy always existed in Ronnie, and maybe we didn't get to see it for a while.
I always thought there was a huge change in Ronnie, and I might have been reading into it after his mother passed away. That's when I thought he started to come out a lot more.
Another guy who I think has changed, who I try to get down here, but I know he's busy, is Scott the engineer.
He's changed not one iota.
Yeah, what are you talking about? He's slightly less prone to scream at you than he was 10 years ago.
I mean, think about it. What's the last Scott screaming fit we've got?
You know what's crazy about talking to Scott? I can still hear him in his head. Like, I can see the anger on his face and hear the yelling in his head.
He's controlled his temper better, but it's still there.
So that's a change, right? And Richard, I think, has changed a little bit, not only with his haircut, but, now married.
No porn anymore.
Yeah. Sal hasn't changed at all.
No.
Not at all.
Well, no, Sal has really changed though, his approach to Howard.
Well, that's one aspect.
It was either that or get fired.
That was an aspect of him that changed, but at his core, Sal's the same guy that arrived here. He still says the same goofy things. He's still sort of happy-go-lucky. He's a good-natured guy. I mean, he's sort of the same guy.
I think he's much more careful, though.
Still doesn't know who fought in the Civil War.
Yeah.
But
his history knowledge is not
He's going to
changed.
get it with the East and the West. He'll get
But
it.
Benji, being more careful doesn't mean you've changed. It just means you've figured out how to not let people know who you are. He's like Dexter. You know what I mean?
I thought Benji actually made a great point off the air. George Takei has changed since.
Again,
I'm sorry, Jason.
Again, I disagree.
All fat guys look alike, I guess.
I think that George Takei has always been that guy. He's just found a place now. When he first met us at terrestrial radio 20 years ago, and he wasn't fully out, and you couldn't talk that way at terrestrial radio, he didn't. But if he could have, he would have. I think he's still.
Yeah, you know what? I did say that, but now I'm wondering if it's more just every time he's on, we just peel back another layer and see this crazy guy that's underneath. I don't know if that's changed, but it certainly changes from appearance to appearance in a good way. It's awesome.
Jason, are you
Lonko.
aware of how much you've changed? Like everyone's saying, you're the one who's really changed the most.
Well, it's been so long. I mean, I've been on Lexapro since I think 2004. So
you remember the story that I just
remember the story. It's one of my favorite stories. I just tweeted about it, and I actually remember the conversation. We were in the office talking to Tom, and we wanted to do some sort of retarded Olympics.
Right.
And Tom just kept saying, "I can't sell that. I can't sell that. I can't sell that." Finally, I go, "Well, somehow they sell the Special Olympics every year," and that's.
Give me one other good story. I know there's another good story.
Oh, well, the one was.
I know the one.
It was Howard TV.
No.
Oh.
The other one in Las Vegas.
Yeah, well, that's Howard TV, or ETV.
It was the entire television show almost threw Jason to the ground and killed him.
So Artie was having some issues that Gary was dealing with, and so Gary goes, "Listen, go to the production meeting." As me, like you're me at the production meeting. So I took it seriously. I'm like, because I always think, like I always flash forward. It's like if somebody said something at the meeting that I thought was wrong, and then I go tell Gary, and Gary goes, well, why didn't you say something or whatever? So I'm just like, I took it upon myself to be Gary. So we were discussing how we were going to do some segments the next day, and there was some issue with how we're going to get the wires from place A to place B and blah, 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 and it's really hard, so let's move it. And then my question to the room was, is it hard or is it impossible to do? And that just set everybody off.
All I know is that I came out of dealing with my situation, and Robert Radzinski, Doug Goodstein, and Scott DePace.
Yep.
But it wasn't like all three at once. It was like a gauntlet, and it went from like, who the fuck is he? I'm gonna fucking kill him. It was. They were all so angry.
I was hiding my face at that point. I was
Well,
like, are you out of your mind? You're 23 years old, and these people have been here for 10 years.
Look, at that moment, I was acting as producer of the Howard Stern Show, and I took it upon my very wide shoulders to do
Gotta be
so.
very careful what you say to him, Gary. The
Clearly.
marching orders.
Howard keeps bumping into cables that Scott says aren't there, and I'm missing something there, Gary. Are they there or are they not there?
They're there. They're there. There's cables underneath Howard's console, and so. I hate to give Scott shit, but it was such a classic Scott conversation. I said, Scott, we probably 2 times in the last 2 months, I've had to have him do the rewiring down there. Hey, there's wires that are loose down there. So Howard and I were talking, and Howard's got 3 monitors in front of him. One of them is, Gary Page 1. One of them Howard plays the stuff off of. One of them is the monitor where he looks at calls that are being screened. Mm-hmm. So they all blacked out. I didn't see it, but Howard goes, the monitors just all went out. So I go out to Scott, and I said, listen, Scott, there's a bunch of wires under the console, and Howard's monitor is blacked out. And he goes, well, that's impossible. Right? So I'm like, okay. And what I think he was saying is there may be wires there.
But that's not the cause of the monitors going out.
So I'm like, well, could you go in and take a look at it? So he goes in and looks at it, and then Howard kicks them again, and the monitors go out right in front of us. And Scott goes, oh, okay. So it was really a nuance, but I could tell what really pissed Howard off. Howard goes, Scott, you got to wrap these cables up. And so Scott, a little bit sarcastically, said, yes, I need to wrap those cables up. And there was a little bit of sarcasm in his voice, and that irritated Howard.
Understandably.
Yes.
And so it went from impossible to possible, and then he tops it off by sarcastically responding to Howard, telling him to get it done.
Yeah, and he had a little bit of a smile on his face, which it was very funny. I mean, it's funny when it's not me.
Yeah. So Scott was like being a joke. Sometimes he's a jokester. I don't know if he was joking if you heard his orgasm clip today, but
he's going to come in and say that he took it very seriously, but he had a little bit of a cavalier attitude today that I didn't know where it was coming from.
All right, we'll see if we can find out where that was coming from. And then at the end, Heather came in, who was with Beth, and talked about how she has no TV in her place. And Robin led a whole conversation about how your kids should eat and with chicken McNuggets and this and that. I don't know if I could have survived without a TV in my place, Gary, growing up.
I like to think, remember the show on HBO, Dream On?
Yes.
Remember the start of that show where
plopped right in front of the TV.
And it would show the Brady Bunch and all these different shows. I was like, yeah, that was me. And you know what? I always say very proudly that me spending all those years in front of the TV is why I got the job here. Howard wanted, before the internet and all that other shit, I could remember the stupid songs, the stupid movies, the theme songs, who was on what show, who did what. That was my value.
You're preaching to the choir here. I wouldn't have a career if it wasn't for television. But we need to interrupt this fascinating conversation with a fascinating conversationalist. What's with this cavalier attitude? Is Gary categorizing you unfairly?
There was something going on today. You were being a bit of a jokester, and I could tell Howard said, we got to wrap these wires up, and you go, yes, we have to wrap these wires up. You were like being a little sarcastic.
Not really. I mean, there are
there was something going on there.
I didn't see any wires, so I don't know. No, there are wires, and we thought they were out of the way. I mean, that they were supposed to be taped. We've had this conversation before.
Right, but I told you that there were wires there. And I left out the part where he goes, I said, well, the wires are out again. And he goes, well, Howard has very long legs.
And he does.
So it's Howard's fault? It's Howard's fault?
No, it's not his fault. We're going to take care of it. I told Evan to make sure that they're lifted off the floor and they're hanging on the board that's down there. And
that's what I said. Yeah. Howard said to him, he goes, Scott, they make a tube. You take the tube and you tape it up top so that nobody can get to it.
We don't need a tube, but there's also a power outlet strip down there which has to be moved as well. So
how did it go from impossible to this, though?
You did say to me, I said, Howard's got wires down there. You didn't. You said, that's impossible.
Well, because I've been through this before with Evan. When it happened before, I said, make sure these wires are out of the way.
Yeah, but then the answer would be, I can't believe that. You said it was impossible as if the wires could have no chance of having anything to do with Howard Screen's blackout. Then when you saw it,
I still believe that those wires down there, because they're mostly TV stuff, have nothing to do with those screens blacking out.
Then why were the screens blacking out?
The screens black out, we've been through this before. That's an updating profit thing that happens. We've been through this with the person that involved in that. So the screens do black out, so do mine. On profit every once in a while. I think they're two separate issues.
But Howard kicked the wires and then the screen's blacked out.
Is that a weird coincidence? Like Howard kicks the wire and the screen?
I think that's a weird coincidence, yes.
I'm sorry.
I do.
I'm sorry.
You know how crazy that sounds, right? If I kick a wire and the monitor goes out and then it happens again, that's a coincidence?
Yes, I do.
You know what I think it is? I think that down there, within that mix of TV wires,
there should be nothing.
Hold on, is down there in that mix of TV wires is a power strip that controls the three monitors that should not be anywhere near Howard's foot.
I don't believe that.
Okay,
we'll figure it out, but I don't believe that.
Okay, so this is Evan's fault and the guy's updating profits' fault.
No.
And a little bit of TV.
Yeah.
And TV.
It's not my fault.
Clearly.
Yeah,
well, Howard
never
kicked it. It's his fault.
Yeah. And Howard's long legs.
It's Howard's long legs, yeah. If he didn't have such long legs, we wouldn't have this conversation.
All right, I'll move off of this and move on to something more comfortable, which was your orgasm
Oh,
club.
my. Yeah. They caught me on a bad day.
Now, were you taking that seriously? Were you joking around a little bit? What was your motivation there? How did you work
A little
that?
both. It was the easy, obviously, you get. You don't get?
No, what's that?
It comes from Easy Evan, which everybody makes fun of me. Scott's easygoing.
Right.
He doesn't.
So you were doing a callback in the.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I didn't catch that.
You didn't
but go
catch
on.
that. Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, that was
And then the rest?
The rest was kind of simulation.
And were Richard and Sal encouraging you, or did you do that on your own?
No, they were sitting there.
But is yours? Because they asked me to do it.
I think that's a little over the top.
Right. But was it based on any reality?
Not really.
Are you usually quiet when you're doing that?
Quiet, yeah. I'm quiet. I'm a lot quieter. I do make a little noise, but not much.
Not like that.
Not like that.
Or like that, like what Benji just did.
That was Benji.
That's did Richard and Sal understand you were doing a callback in the beginning?
I think they got it.
Oh, but you didn't confirm that. You weren't sure.
No, I mean, they laughed and,
Whose do you think was creepiest? JD's, Ronnie's, or Scott's?
Ronnie's.
Why?
Because he's my grandfather. I think that you get to a certain age where I don't want to think of you as a sexual being.
Benji, you agree?
I don't find them creepy, but like I thought Scott, I found yours the least sincere. It didn't turn me on one bit.
I'm sorry I didn't turn you on. Maybe we'll go in a private room.
But
and I'll
Ronnie
cry.
sounded like it sounded real to me. I don't know if that's really how he sounds.
Oh, you thought that was real? That
was pretty good, Gary.
He's doing porn stars.
Yours just got to me too.
So you don't think Ronnie's really like that when push comes to shove?
I think Ronnie's a dirty talker, but I don't think he moans like that.
Oh, so you think he's quiet like Scott is?
I think he's like, most guys aren't screamers and yellers. It's just for movies.
Well, not screaming, but don't you like?
Yeah, but that's okay. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole thing.
1 1/4 seconds, and it'll go on for like 10 seconds.
I mean, you may do a like that.
Now, how did this compare to the guy who came in with the world's sexiest voice today? Did Howard learn anything from him, or
they learned that when a guy proclaims himself something, it doesn't mean it's true. But it was, people were like, "How come you put that guy on? You're having all these big guests on." But that's like what we do. We brought the guy in to see what his story was. It was goofy.
And Joe, took a lot of pride in what he did, and he said, as a kid, as his voice got deeper, people had told him that he had a really sexy voice.
I thought it was a lot like. Like your neighbor, the kid can sing, and everybody, they might be the best singer on the block, and everyone says, "Oh, you should be a professional singer." People must say, "Oh, you should be in radio. You have this great voice. You have such a sexy voice." But maybe he does just for the neighborhood. I don't know if he's the sexiest voice.
Sexiest voice in the neighborhood.
Yeah,
I think he's going for something bigger than that.
Right. He could with work. He has a nice deep voice.
Yeah.
And if he had the proper training, he could be an announcer. Sexy voice, I didn't get it, so it didn't work for me. But he could be an announcer.
Who here do you think has the sexiest voice?
I can't
on the staff.
Guys, I Benji, I love Benji's voice.
No, I'm serious.
I'm told that all the time.
Yeah,
that I have
you're
an
the best.
incredible voice.
With your eyes, with your blue eyes.
Not even if you don't see my eyes. I'm told, which is funny because I know it's squeaky, but I'm told all the time I have the sexiest voice.
I will tell you who a lot of women have told me. Have you ever heard Fred you ever hear Fred to be a DJ?
Yes.
Like when Fred's, talking to you, and Fred's got this sort of smooth, sort of calming voice. I've heard women say he's got a great voice.
I'd like to take Fred on. We call people anonymously, and we'll see who doesn't call the police.
Hey, it's Gary Delabate, Baba Booey. On Tuesday's wrap-up show, Robin Plymouth stopped by. That was a big deal because Robin hasn't been by the show for, almost a year and a half, right when her illness started. She came by, she answered questions from listeners, questions from me, questions from Benji. It was very interesting and great to have her back. Here's how it went.
Let's start off with Paul McCartney. And whenever Paul McCartney, he's gone from a dream pet project to his third trip up here, which is pretty amazing. Right?
When I think of how much time I spent trying to get him up here the first time, I mean years, literally, I think it was 10 years in a row, he would be the first call I would make every year for Howard's birthday. I figure shoot high, and I would always get shot down. And yeah, now that, it's fair to say that Paul McCartney is a regular on the Howard Stern Show. In fact, I was pitching another guest last week, and I said, Paul McCartney has made this a regular stop whenever he's got something to promote.
And he has a good time with Howard. And he's sitting there on the couch, very comfortable, answering every question about all the songs that he's written. And it's the one guest, though, where I think you see Howard he's not nervous, but he definitely is in awe because this is a Beatle he's talking to.
I was going to say, and I don't mean this in a bad way at all, but Howard becomes a fan. I've seen Howard be a fan. Like, Howard's a fan of a show. But at the end of the day, it's still Howard is watching the show. Howard's a fan in a way, like the excitement, you can really feel it. Like you know that Paul has had an influence on his life. There's not many people that fit that bill.
Yeah, and he's looking at him sort of as the kid growing up watching the Beatles, and he talked about how whatever they did, he did. They were trendsetters for a lot of people, but obviously him. And at the end of the interview, Howard gave a genuine thank you, and you can tell it wasn't lip service, and Paul appreciated that, and I thought that was a sweet moment.
Yeah, Howard went to a lot of different places today. I even thought that that you always get like a little crumb of what his and John's relationship is, and I thought the story he told about how he would, when he was in school, he would say, "I've written some songs." And people would be like, cool. And John goes, well, yeah, I got some songs too. Like right from the get-go at 15, they're like, well, you want to do this? Let's do this.
And also how they describe the way they collaborate. Paul saying, he's writing Getting Better. And the easy thing would be to write whatever. And John says it can't get much worse, and how they were just a match made in heaven. And it reminds me a lot of this young lady coming here now with Howard, because they just gel in a way that is sort of like you don't script that stuff. Either you click or you don't. And when it's right, you can do some legendary stuff. And Robin, so glad to see you here.
Yes, I thought I'd come down and say hi to the wrap-up show today. And it's funny that you should mention that, because that thought occurred to me when he was talking about that writing process between him and John.
Because with you and Howard, it always seems, I mean, I know you guys have had your ups and downs, but there's just a natural flow, natural chemistry, and you both feel very comfortable with one another. And you've got millions and millions of people listening, hanging on your every word, which is sort of Beatles-esque, because they had the same type of effect on people.
Well, I just think it's when that collaboration is right, you just find whatever idea you had just got pumped up, like on steroids, because they just take it to the next level for you. It's like, oh, here's a great idea. It was sort of like, when I just happened to, yesterday it happened when I just said, oh, they're doing this Dr. Ruth Broadway show. And Howard said, well, how great would it be if Pam Anderson played Dr. Ruth? And then all of a sudden it became a completely different idea.
And I would imagine it's effortless at this point with you guys. Yeah. And that's, as an audience, you sort of can appreciate that over time. And I think with McCartney, it's the same thing with Lennon. They just were the perfect marriage. And of course, the results speak for themselves.
Yeah, I always say that Howard's like the world's greatest dance partner, because he leads and he makes you such a great dancer that you don't realize when you're trying to dance by yourself, you're not really as good as you thought you were. But seriously, like I'll go in there and I'll start talking to him, and he just starts leading me, and I was like, well, this is so effortless. And then you go talk to somebody else, you're like, this is so fucking hard. You must be dealing with that a lot now when you're on your book tour, right? You have to deal. I mean, some of your interviews, but you get some dumb.
But you just basically tell your story, or you do whatever you're going to do. You don't look for that collaboration.
No, you look. Sometimes you can't find any collaboration.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why you just bother. Right. I know what I'm going to say, and I know what I want to do, and I'll just throw this in here or there. I'm not looking for what I get when I'm talking to Howard.
It sounds like with this extra interview, though, that you did with Beth, there was a little bit more than that.
Beth was amazing, because when we sat down, she says, oh, I'm so nervous about the interview. And I said, what are you nervous about? And she said, well, I want to do a good job, and, I want to, get to something really substantive. And I said, well, you have a perspective on this that no one else has. And she was like, what? And I said, you know what Howard actually went through. No one else has this knowledge. And from that, she says, yes, you got to say that this is what we're going to talk about. And that's sort of how the interview rolled out.
Is Howard's ego going to be out of control after he watches this interview?
Yes, I really do think he'll, think he has the ability to heal, and he'll be touching people, laying on hands, and doing the whole thing.
You know what this makes me think of? Remember when Howard saved the guy from the bridge?
Yes.
And then he started playing Mariah Carey's Hero. And she go, you can be my hero. And he's like, yes, I am a hero. That was like balloon head.
I mean, it could get to that point again.
Hey, did you ever get to a point that you were like trying magical type stuff?
Trying magical type stuff, I don't consider it magical, but I did a lot of things that were not necessarily, in the
I mean,
cancer rule
like
book.
Going to a healer, that kind of
No, I didn't go to a healer, but I had a Reiki master. I did reflexology a lot. I did everything I could to lower my stress level, because, it's very stressful to have this and then go through these treatments and wonder if they're going to work out. And so I did a lot of things that were calming and healing in that way.
This is a really personal question, but I'm curious. Did you pray?
Did I pray? I didn't ever do that kind of thing, where you're sitting there going, dear
God,
Lord,
if you let me out.
please. No, that never really happened. I think it happened in other ways. Like, boy, I really want to get out of this. It wasn't like a prayer to any particular God.
But you never lost your energy. Like, you never lost your. I know,
I did. I was faking it. That was that character that comes.
that character's
on
pretty
the
amazing
air.
because, and we talked about this when you were out, but you were on the air a couple days after. We know what you went through, and I'm not going to single out Benji, but other people, come in late, have different issues. You're battling this, yet you're on the air every single day. But I would think that's kind of what motivated you and kept you going, because during that time, you were Robin on the Howard Stern show, and you got to think about
For 4
that.
hours every day, I didn't have to be sick, and I could just sit and have fun with people. And while that microphone was on, I really didn't feel pain. I really wasn't uncomfortable. I was there. I was in a zone. I go into a zone with the show, and so the rest of the world doesn't really matter.
Is it strange being back here live in studio?
Yeah, it is a little strange. The first day, I've had, the camera view of Howard.
Right.
The whole time I was at home. And so the first day when the console was way up high and all I could see was the top of his head, I was like, oh, that's weird. I can't see him.
But wasn't it also weird for you to come into? I mean, you came into a different office.
Well, the
physical
the surroundings have changed radically, and it's really beautiful. And there's a bit of a different attitude. It's much more professional. I just noticed today that Paul McCartney's name was on the door of his green room.
You don't even know the half of it.
And
do you know that we give out gift bags to the guests?
Well, Howard, you said something about a gift bag to me yesterday or the day before, and I was like, oh, we've even got a gift bag, and there's little snacks.
Did you see the bidet in the bathroom?
No, there's no bidet in the
No, but did you notice that even our, this is my
The
favorite.
bathroom has no tickle chair.
That's right. Right. Our bathroom here that the guests would go in was a storage facility. So at one point, there was a tickle chair was in there. The RoboSpank was in there. There would be a giant closet. Sometimes it would be open with props of like dildos and everything.
Right, yeah.
That's
there were
gone.
days, because I used to go in there to do my makeup, and I'd back up and fall into the tickle chair trying to get my makeup on.
Those days are gone.
I thought you just wanted to be tickled.
Getting back to McCartney for a second, Gary and I were saying in the beginning, it's the guest that you see. Howard becomes this fan with Paul, and he does a great interview, but it's like one of the only times you'll see Howard act that way. Is there anybody else who he acts that way with, as far as you can, with Rickles a little bit? Maybe I'm trying to think of other people that he does that with.
Yeah, because I'd have to think about that for a little while. But there are you definitely get those times. Well, the first time it happened, and I always think this is funny. Like our very
I know where
first
you're going.
guest,
Soupy?
Soupy Sales, and I had been working with Howard only less than a year at that point. And, I thought he was amazing right from the very beginning. And then, all I knew of Soupy Sales was the dopey, stupid roles he'd do in movies and the guest shots on TV talk shows. And so I didn't really think that much of Soupy. And Howard's like, oh my God, Soupy Sales is coming in. And I'm like, what? You're excited about Soupy Sales? He's like, Robin, you have no idea. And he did. He did this gushingly fan-based interview. And Soupy loved it, of course.
Little did you know how that relationship would play out over time.
Yeah, we
of
had
course.
no idea in the future we'd be at odds with Soupy and actually at war. But that first interview, and I was like, wow, that's your idol, huh?
Were you upset that Howard didn't realize that your book was dedicated to him?
Well, it was such an aside, yesterday when I was with Beth. And I had sent the book to him, and then I didn't hear anything. And I thought, well, maybe he just doesn't think that much of the book being dedicated to him. And then she said, Robin, do you realize he didn't know that the book was dedicated to him until I pointed it out to him on Sunday? And I'm like, are you kidding me? And she's like, no, he skipped right over that part, went to the meat of the book, and never even saw it.
Eric in Jersey, welcome to the Wrap-Up Show.
Thanks, John. I just wanted to check in with Rob and let her know that I'm a devoted listener. I hated the secrecy surrounding, why you weren't in the studio. But after the explanation last week or the week before, I wanted to thank you because I felt like as a listener, I had a role in your recovery.
Yes,
and I felt like I was part of, I did my part by shutting my mouth, listening to the show, and just just hoping that everything turned out okay. So
Yeah, people don't realize how much of a therapy it was for me to be able to get up and just have the show to do every day, and not to have it focus on me and how I'm doing all the time.
Did you ever get out of the zone and something like jarred you that we were talking about that emotionally was very, very tough to handle?
I remember when Roseanne's Tom Arnold came in, and at that time I had an ileostomy.
Mm-hmm.
And Tom Arnold came in and he started talking about how he blew out his butt with oxycodone and had to have a temporary ileostomy. I was like, that motherfucker. I wasn't having fun. I wasn't doing oxycodone, and I'm in the same shape.
It was interesting because I talked to Robin about this off the air, and I realized I have never talked to her about it on the air. So when the guests would come in, I would have to say to the guests, and by the way, Robin's not in studio. She's doing the show from home via ISDN line, so just don't reference that she's not here. The audience knows she's not here, but don't say, where's Robin? Because it slows the show down. And it was such a social study. Some people would be like really cool, and some people would get like this almost like funeralistic look and tone. I remember Bradley Cooper getting very serious and going, I know, how is Robin? But people would take on this tone, but everyone would look at me like, I know, they would grab my hand. I'm like, I'm not the sick one.
I also love when the guests were in there and you would start speaking, they would look to your booth and start talking to your booth, even though...
George Takei was so much fun to watch because he always talked to the booth. He never stopped talking to the booth when I spoke.
And the other weird thing was there was about a half a dozen people who weren't big fans of the show, didn't know the show really well. And I would tell them that, and it seemed, in my mind, for some reason, they all seemed to be English. And they would go, fuck you, I'm going right in, and go, where the fuck is Robin?
But some of the other things, because I was watching everyone, I could see everyone through I was Skyped the TV feed. And so I could see everyone as they were in the studio. And there were... sometimes the strippers or the porn stars didn't quite get the explanation.
Right.
And there were people who'd be looking up in the sky. Where's that woman coming from?
I promise you it was explained to all of them.
Hey, if it didn't make a difference to anyone, but it was just purely how you felt about it, do you like doing it better from home or coming in?
Well, there's certainly an ease to just walking down my hall and sitting there, but it's much better to be in the studio. Why? It's much better because there are things that, I can only see what the camera decides to show me at home. And sometimes the camera didn't work. That was another thing. Every once in a while there was a technical problem, and I'd be doing the show completely blind. And so that never worked. And you always had that that fear that technically something will drop out. At least if I'm here, it can be compensated.
What about, because I always wondered about this, because I know when I'm doing the show with Howard, there's a lot of eye contact going on between Howard and I that tells me what to do or not do.
Right.
That must have been really missed.
I adapted. There was one day that I totally lost the video feed, and we had guests in, and it was a band. I can't remember what band it was, and it was very hard at that point because there were so many elements.
Right.
And I said, I just got to lay back. I can't do much because I don't know what's happening.
Right.
Your relationship with Howard, you guys have always been close, but I would imagine your ordeal has brought you even closer. Did you even think that was possible, number one? And number two?
I still don't think it brought us closer. It just, things had to be done and exercised that had never, switches had to be flipped that had never needed flipping before. That was the only thing it felt like to me. I've always been sort of a self-sufficient human being, and all of a sudden I didn't need just a little help. I needed a huge amount of help, and he just took over.
Yeah, I think for me, watching this whole thing go down with you two, is the headline is, you think of some of the great partnerships in the history of entertainment. You talk about John Lennon and McCartney, and Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis. They had this thing, and none of them lasted.
No.
People burn out on each other, and the story for me was this incredible 33, 35-year friendship that you guys never sort of had to really acknowledge.
No, it was just like it just sort of sat in a box and never got used. And so it was just like, all right, this actually works. All these, we never tested it before, but the system works.
Another person you said was very close and really caring during this was none other than the great Ronnie Mund, which surprised some people because they don't necessarily think that Ronnie is that kind of guy.
So sensitive and so sweet. He's amazing.
Oh, let's not get carried away, huh?
No, he was there visiting me every time he could, and
True.
just texting me little notes of encouragement or just wishing me a happy holiday. I was just like, wow, there's Ronnie's right there.
No one knows that side of you.
Only me.
They probably won't ever know that side of me.
Somebody that works here closely with us described Ronnie as a big ball of mush.
Yeah.
Who said that?
I'm not going to tell you.
It really is true, though. I mean, he's got a very soft center.
I hear that from somebody that lives in my house, too.
Why are you embarrassed by being called a big ball of mush?
Hey, come on, man. That's a little gay, don't you think?
What's gay about it?
I don't know. Big ball of mush. I call my son's dog a big bowl of mush.
Is he gay?
He might be. Who knows? He's always smelling my dog's ass. So.
But you realize, I mean, Howard, Ronnie, you can attest this better than I can. But the show is a family in a way. And when this kind of stuff goes down, people show up or they don't, I guess. They're there for you or they're not. And I know some people...
And sometimes they show up and you say, don't.
That's where I'm going with this, Benji. You mentioned that, of the people that visited you, the one that you feared, if you will, was Benji. Not that I'm sure you didn't appreciate the sentiment,
it was wonderful that Benji was trying. Yes, absolutely. But, I was in a state that I just didn't think I could handle.
Which is totally cool, but people don't understand.
Benji.
I wasn't stalking. Robin, you kept giving me a message back like, how about this Friday? Try me this Friday. I think Friday would be good.
And
then I'd write back on Friday.
But I just didn't know what else to say. I mean, how can you say, please stop bothering me. I don't want to see you right now.
I would have been fine just to say, that's lovely. I'll let you know when it's a good time.
Can I jump in here?
I didn't think of that, Benji. Now I'll know what to write.
Benji sent me the text exchanges with you.
Uh-huh.
And the best way I could describe it is Benji was really trying to see you, and you were like a girl who was being pursued by a guy who didn't want to say fuck off. So you'd say, like, maybe next week, but most guys would get it. You were hoping, and they didn't. That's what I got.
It was a specific. Try 5 o'clock on Friday.
Wasn't that?
I don't think so.
Andy in South Carolina, you're on the wrap-up show.
Hey, Robin, glad you're back and healthy. For what it's worth, I did offer prayers to that imaginary man in the sky. But the reason I wanted to call was while you were out, it seemed like you were a little more, your opinions were a little stronger and confrontational with Howard. Am I imagining that? That's before I knew what was going on. You just seemed to be a little more bolder in your opinions. Was that the case when you were out sick?
I don't necessarily think that was the case. I didn't think I was changing in any way. I do know that I sort of abandoned my vow not to emasculate men. I was like, I got to just go on automatic.
So who'd you
here.
get? Who do you remember getting?
Well, of course, JD all the time.